Today on Energy Contact, there's a lot more going on in our spines than just structure. And there's a lot more going on in our brains than just intellect. And there's this all-pervasive body intellect that communicates with and through both the spine and the brain. It determines what we think and how we feel and how we're structured. For most of us, it happens without our awareness, even though it's us that's doing it. Well, today, we're going to get a little bit more aware. And we're going to see what we're doing to and for ourselves and what it has to do with our core. It's coming up right now on Energy Contact.
And I ain't gonna worry, and I ain't gonna complain. I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping, and I'll keep my mind on better things. I ain't gonna worry, and I ain't gonna complain. I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping, and I'll keep my mind on better things.
Hello, and welcome to Energy Contact. My name is Joseph Willenbrink. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you to the production staff here in the studio for helping me get my message out to you. Energy Contact is a series I'm presenting as a public service. It's about attaining perfect health, growth, self-improvement, happiness, and it's about realizing our full potential. It's designed to present you a new way of seeing yourself and seeing the world around you. We're talking about things that have to do with making an energetic contact with yourself internally and with your environment. There's no difference between the body, the mind, the spirit, the emotion, the intellect, and the ego. There's no difference between mass and energy. We love to separate it out. We love to categorize, but there's no difference. And so all that health and growth and self-improvement take place at the interface where we make energetic contact between this physical self and that unseen energetic world. We're presenting on these programs a brand new paradigm that's thousands of years old. We're presenting extraordinary topics for ordinary people. And let's move right ahead with that, and let's bring up that first slide. Everyone please know that I am not a doctor. I don't want to be. I might call myself an energy healer or a chakra healer, so might a lot of other people, but state, federal, and local governments do not. This show is not a medical advice show, and I don't give medical advice. There's a lot of valuable information on this slide, so please read it with all due awareness. And when you've got it down, if you will, go find a pencil and paper. The reason why is that at the end of this show, we're going to roll some credits, and on those credits is contact information for me. I encourage you to contact me. I look forward to it. But in order to do that, you're going to need to have my contact information. And in order to get that, you're going to need a pencil and paper. It's not on the screen for all that long, so at the end of the show when you see it, you won't have time to look. So if you'll locate that pencil and paper now, that'll be a good thing to do. All right, let's come back up here. Today is show number 25. If you're tuning in for the first time, thank you. Thank you for being here and welcome. I think you'll enjoy the show. I think there's a lot of value on it for you. These shows are sequential. They build. So we are talking about things today that we've presented and explained in previous shows. But I'm also doing my very best to make these shows have value on a standalone basis. So things that need to be reviewed or gone over, I'll take time to do that so you'll be able to get a lot out of the show. If this is your first time, and one of your first times, and if what you see piques your interest, then please look for earlier shows that might air later, either in this neighborhood or perhaps in the different cable areas of one of your friends. All right, and now I'm going to introduce my co-host to you. It is with great pleasure and honor that I introduce my co-host Slim. Let's get Slim on the camera there. There's my man Slim. Since we're investigating what it is that energy contacts in the physical self, we have to know a couple of things, don't we? We have to know about energy. And this program is about energy, and we're going to talk a lot about that. but we also have to know about what it is that that energy contacts. That energy does us no good out there. Slim is here to help us understand what the energy contacts. Remember, a body without energy is just a corpse. And energy without a body, well, it might be a number of wonderful things, but it's not human. All right, so let's move ahead. Now it's the time of our show where we make our virtual field trip. We're going to take a virtual journey in our mind's eye. Today, we are going to go back in time a little bit. We're going to go to a telegraph office in the late 1800s. In fact, we're going to a telegraph hub. We don't hear much about telegraphs these days. They're obsolete. But back in the day, they revolutionized communications. How did they work? They worked by sending energetic pulses, rhythms, frequencies, vibrations. If you're a long-time watcher of energy contact, you'll realize that that statement has a lot of meanings at a lot of levels. But let's get back to telegraphs right now. Telegraphs require wiring, impulses that travel over wires. So, where you have wires, you have hubs, because not all wires go to all places. So there needs to be someone or something that gets your message from this wire over here and relays it to that wire over there. So here we are in our virtual journey in our mind's eye in a telegraph hub office in the late 1800s. And what do we see? We see a bunch of dudes sitting around with visors. They're sitting around there with visors and they're tapping those little buttons and they're sending and receiving messages. Part of what we want to observe is that these guys don't need to talk to either the sender or the receiver of the message. They don't need to talk to a boss or a manager or a coordinator. They don't need to talk to each other. They don't even need to know what the message is. As a matter of fact, it's better if they don't. What they need to do is just sit there and not process too much thought. They just need to receive and transmit. They need to focus. All right, we're going to see a lot of stuff with that today. Because previously on Energy Contact, we have been talking about the body intellect, and we're going to relate that to the body intellect. We've been talking about how the same materials in our brains that give us thought, reason, recall, memory, intellect, logic, all of those things, how they're in every cell of our body. We're learning how that works. We've seen how the body intellect builds us, how thought builds anatomy. We're learning how that works. And when we investigated that, we learned a little bit about the internal and external forces that animate us and that operate upon us. The internal forces: breath, heartbeat, rhythm, frequency, vibration, pulse. External forces: mainly we've seen gravity that falls down, energy that falls up, and entropy that falls apart. We've spoken a little bit about this mysterious energy that the old Indian mystics called Kundalini energy. We haven't explained it much, but hang on to that thought because we're getting there. And we've seen what all this has to do with our core. Today, we're trying to find our way to that telegraph office. We want to find out how we're moving this energy from the earth up. We know that energy falls up past our main horizontal structure and up through our main vertical structure. We spent a long time looking at what's going on in our pelvis and in our core, and we've learned that energy falls up from there through our spine, and so now we're taking that journey with it. We want to see what's going on in our spine besides structure. The spine's doing more than just holding us upright, or failing to, as the case may be. We want to understand more of its control system function, its switch box function. We want to see what that has to do with energy flow, with Kundalini, with our core. Ultimately, we want to get to the place where we understand what we're doing to block our energy flows so we can unblock them. And then how to allow our spine to facilitate this upward flow of Kundalini energy. So, We're interested in the spine today, that main vertical structure, but we're interested in a very non-structural aspect of it, an aspect that works very closely with the brain. Remember, there's plenty of stuff going on in your spine besides structure, and there's plenty of stuff going on in your brain besides intellect. And furthermore, there's plenty of intellect going on that's not in your brain. The brain and the spine are also the location of much of the nervous system. We want to see what all this has to do with linking, with making energy contact between the brain and the spine structure and the core. And from there to our thoughts and our feelings, how we look the way we look and act the way we act and feel the way we feel, and how we send those messages out to every atom of ourselves. We're seeing today, like every time, that the core is intimately and actively a part of what that spine is doing. In fact, there's absolutely no difference. Let's bring up a slide, and we're going to get right to that nervous system. The nervous system in general can be thought of as the chief coordinating agency of all the body parts and functions. It's like the function of the orchestra conductor. It's a complex system in itself, much more like telegraphs and telephones, land telephones, than like the internet or cell phones, because it's hardwired, or at least for the most part. But in general, it's not like the telegraph office we visited a couple minutes ago. We'll explain that more. But for right now, you can see on the left of this picture that there's a brain and something that looks like a spine, but if you look close, you'll see there's no vertebrae there. It looks more like a snake. That's the spinal cord. On the other side, you'll see the peripheral nervous system. And we'll look at both of those a little more in a second. For now, let's come back up here. The nervous system is what allows that body to continually adapt to all the internal and external stimuli that are always going on. But wait a minute. Internal and external forces. We've spoken about that before. Let's take a look at that. It takes us back to the very early episodes of Energy Contact. Remember when we talked about internal and external forces? If you'll recall, we looked at a live person and a dead person laying side by side because we wanted to understand what was in the one that was not in the other. And we figured it out, didn't we? The only thing that was in that live guy was those internal forces that animate us, invisible things, breath, frequency, pulse, wave, motion, heartbeat. These are intangible things. You can't go to the store and pick up a half a pound of frequency, yet without them, we're just a dead body. There's external forces too. The external forces are gravity and entropy and energy. The nervous system, then, is how our body manages all of these things, how it coordinates all these internal and external forces that we call stimuli. It's that never-ending body-intellect desire to create balance and equilibrium, to manage all the bumps and bruises, all of the kisses and hugs of life. How does all that communication take place? It's amazing, because it's a series of frequencies, of pulses, of rhythms, of vibrations. It's the internal forces that animate us in action. It's the things we've been discussing since the very early beginnings of the series here. It's the quantum motion that Einstein spoke about. It's the Kundalini motion that the old yogis knew about. All right, that's all fascinating stuff, but let's leave it for a second and go back and learn some dry old anatomy. Let's bring that slide back up again. So, central nervous system. We're going to a brief anatomy course here. There's two divisions. There's the central nervous system, that's the brain and the snake over there on the left, and the peripheral nervous system. That's all those machinations going on there on the right. The central nervous system includes just that, just the brain and the spinal cord. We'll talk more about the spinal cord later, but now you can see that it's just the snake on the left side of that diagram. Let's move to the next slide, and you're going to just see a mishmash of information that you don't really need to understand. That's just an org chart of what all those different things are doing. And you can see that that central nervous system is just managing all sorts of front and mid and back brain stuff. The textbook says the central nervous system, quote, processes incoming sensory information and sends out outgoing motor commands. You don't need to know that information. Now, all you need to do is think of the central nervous system as the command center and the peripheral system as something that hooks up to it. We want to find our way from here back to that telegraph office. So let's come back up here for right now. We're going to look a lot of anatomy here. Let's don't get lost in it, but we're going to keep going with it. We want to keep our focus. Our goal is not to understand the anatomy. Our goal is to understand our own body intellect, is to understand a little bit something about how we feel the way we feel and how we act the way we act. To understand a little about something about energy contact. All right, so the peripheral nervous system is where we're going next, and it is usually defined as all of the nerves outside the central nervous system, which I've always thought is sort of a cop-out answer. But here comes a little more vocabulary. It's divided into motor and sensory systems. Let's bring up another org chart here. And this one focuses a little bit more on the peripheral nervous system. You can see there the motor and sensory systems. There it is. And that going from there, the motor system is further divided into the somatic and skeletal nervous system, or the somatic system rather, and the autonomic nervous system. That somatic system allows voluntary control over skeletal muscles. All that means is it makes us move because we want to move. Again, we're trying to just race through all this stuff just to find the place where the autonomic nervous system resides. And so that autonomic nervous system then, it's largely involuntary actions and reactions. And it controls organ muscles and smooth muscles and cardiac muscles, glands, things that operate in the background. But these background things are precisely the things that either build or demolish us. They're the things that integrate or disintegrate us. They're the things that can make us fall apart, that bring in entropy. So that autonomic nervous system is big stuff for our show today. Let's go right to the next slide. And you'll see a picture of it. That's what we're interested in. Look at all that stuff. Check out all that activity. It's like a wiring diagram, isn't it? The textbook will say that all this stuff is going on here. All these signals are being sent without your conscious brain participating at all. Well, that's true to a large degree. The conscious brain might not be participating, but your body intellect is hard at work. Those anatomy texts won't tell you that. All right, let's come back up here and we'll talk a little bit more about the autonomic nervous system. Basically, autonomic means automatic, or more accurately, automatic response to stimulus. When you hear about involuntary actions, you're hearing about something that the autonomic nervous system is doing. It does not require this master brain stuff going on. So what is it then? Well, it's the telegraph system. It's that telegraph hub we visited. You see, that master brain might not be involved, but everything that does go on happens under its very alert guidance, and the very alert guidance of the body intellect. The question is not whether the body intellect is aware of the autonomic nervous system actions. The question is whether you are aware of your body intellect. All right, I'm going to barrage you just a little bit more. Let's bring up another slide. And here's a slide of that autonomic nervous system. You can see it in itself breaks down into three parts: the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, and the enteric nervous system. Don't get lost, these are just big words. But look at that for a second. We used to think, and a lot of us grew up hearing that the autonomic nervous system was divided into only two subfunctions. Now we know there's a third one, and science just figured it out a few years back. But let's start with the first two, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So let's move forward again and we'll see that slide, that wiring chart again. And you'll see all those wires. They're sort of going, if you look, you'll see that there's same organs on each side. One side of them is the parasympathetic and one side's the sympathetic system, but they're operating on the same targets. So what are they doing? Well, that sympathetic system is the system that operates. It might operate without our conscious brain, but it operates when we're conscious, when we're alert. Remember episodes back we spoke of the fight or flight or freeze reaction? Well, that's all here. But wait, you'll recall, when we talked about that, we spoke of it being in our core. Well, how can it be there if it's here? Hold that thought. Right now, let's stick with this sympathetic system. It's also the stress and tension management system. It's protective reflexes. It pulls our shoulders up. It constricts muscles. It turns muscle into armor. It's there designed to protect us instantaneously from instantaneous threats. That sympathetic system is automatic. It requires no conscious thought, but remember, it is involved with managing conscious stimuli. The parasympathetic system, on the other hand, is all about relaxing and letting go. It kicks in when we're asleep, or deeply relaxed, or meditating. It's our repair, refresh, and recharge system, our own built-in natural energy healer. All right, so let's come back. If we're healthy, that parasympathetic system tells those tight shoulders to come down. It tells our food that it's okay to digest. It generates peace. But so many of us have made not letting go our life's mission. We've made it our mantra. That we get stuck in that first mode, that fight or flight or freeze mode. And we completely lose touch with that parasympathetic system. Even when we're asleep then, we don't relax, we don't refresh, we don't repair. And when that takes place, bad things happen. And all those stress management courses you've heard about promote that. Okay, so until a few years ago, we heard that that's all there was. That's all that the elementary anatomy books would talk about. Maybe you'd get to some advanced books and they'd talk about this little set of nerve ganglia. The word ganglia just means little nerve switch boxes that were located in our intestines that somehow hooked up, sort of an offshoot. Well, we've learned recently that that's not a little offshoot at all, that it's an equal and independent system, a full partner with the sympathetic and parasympathetic, at least a full partner, if not more. So there is a part, we've just learned, of the peripheral nervous system that is neither in the spine nor in the brain. It's always been there, we just haven't always known it. Not only that, but this system operates without input from either the brain or the spinal cord. Well, what is it then? It's the enteric nervous system, so-called. Enteric just means intestinal. If you've ever heard of enteric-coated aspirin, all that means is aspirin that doesn't dissolve in your stomach, it dissolves in your intestines. Okay, so that's what it is. Where is it? Well, it's in our core. Oh my goodness, hang on a second. We've got a part of our wiring, our systems of frequencies and pulses that are located in our core. Knock me over with a feather. That core is attached to the brain and to the spine through that set of signals, through that set of pulses and rhythms and vibrations. It's Kundalini energy. It's the body intellect. It's energy contact. In fact, that enteric system, it is a brain all on its own. Just like the brain in your head, it has its own network, an independent network, its own telegraph hub. It sends and receives impulses, it records experiences, and it responds to emotions. It's a self-standing, independent network of neurotransmitters and proteins that zap out and tap out messages between the neurons, just like what happens in the brain. It's able to learn, to act independently, to remember, and as the saying goes, to produce gut feelings. And it's in the core. It's in the body intellect. It is reported to play a major role in human happiness and misery. Who reports that? Tree-hugging mystics? No, that's science. This is all scientific data. And so that's where gastrointestinal disorders come from. We just figured it out. How did all those yogis know about all that stuff 8,000 years ago? And how did we forget it? And why did we think we were too smart to listen to them? That enteric system works differently than the spinal system, than that whole spinal nervous system. It's akin to the nervous system in invertebrates. It's sort of a evolutionary throwback. It's ancient, it's simple and primitive, yet it's very evolved. And it operates when we're alert, and it operates when we're relaxed. It's located in the sheaths of tissue lining in our core, as high up as our esophagus, but more in our stomachs and in our intestines. In the presence of danger, it alerts us, and it seeks to empty out the digestive system so that we can devote that digesting energy to more urgent tasks. That's why when we sense imminent danger or we get under stress for a long time, we get a little diarrhea, or maybe we throw up. But at a more strategic level, that enteric system does a lot more subtle things. Signals from the brain, that's this one up here, can cause the immune system to kick into gear. Or, if we're messed up and under all that strength, it can cause that immune system to break down. And when that immune system breaks down, bad things happen. So let's go back to that flight or fight response. Where is that? Well, it's in the core. The enteric nervous system, where's it? It's in our core. Remember a few shows back we looked at survival instinct in the Maslow hierarchy? Where's that? Well, it's in the core. Soon we'll investigate root chakras and second chakras, and you'll never guess where they're located. They're in the core. And now it all makes physiological sense. And under stress, when our core thinks we're in danger, it convinces our brain that that's the case, because our nervous system is cooperating with our core, but we're out of touch with our core. There's still time to fix it all, but the way to fix it is to get in touch with our core. All of this stuff sort of takes your breath, doesn't it? It takes your breath, and breath is life, and life is rhythm, and pulse, and frequency, and it's all those things that nerves do. And now we know a little about it. And since we know a little bit about it, we can do what it takes to heal ourselves. So that's about all the time we have for today. We're going to look a lot more at all this stuff the next time. Until then, I wish you peace and positive energy and a healthy life in Energy Contact.
I'm gonna drive away.